Also, believe it or not, Richard Nixon or John McCain or those people actually were more responsible for making drugs illegal or making drugs impossible to get than I ever was. Like I said, they used it as a trick. They would basically put the cocaine or put the ecstasy inside of women's coffee or women's drinks, and then they would go and give it to their girlfriends or their whatever, and the women would would basically say, "I don't know why, but I feel good around you. I just like being around you." I think Marilyn Monroe might have done this, but basically this was back in the day. People would say, "Oh, I just like him. I like being around him. He just gives me this feeling." And the women would be like, "I don't know why, but I just like being around him, and I just like making love to him, and he just feels better than most men." And like I said, the Richard Nixon and John McCain and the Republicans were basically using drugs like ecstasy and cocaine and stuff like that to basically um, pretty much make people feel better about being around them. Basically, like I said, it's ecstasy, it's cocaine, it's just drugs. You know, drugs kind of like what we release, pheromones and stuff like this. In the human body and stuff. Anyway, though, they were actually restricting drugs into certain countries or certain places, basically, and pretty much they were the only suppliers. And they did it sleight of hand and underhandedly, and basically people didn't understand that they're actually being under the influence of a drug. And the people had nothing to do with, but it's association, or basically that pretty much the people like to have these people around because they would get high or a feeling when these people were around. And later on, once, like I said, it was basically withheld from the public or withheld from knowledge. Like they would say, oh, there's no kind of drugs that do any kind of that make any, there are no mood altering drugs or stuff like that. Richard Nixon would say, or other people would say, there are no mood altering drugs at all. There's nothing that would affect a human mind or emotions in the slightest. Anyway, they they basically kept people from knowing the truth about drugs and everything else as much as they could because they wanted to be the only ones with them. Anyway, though, plus they couldn't really afford all that much anyway because drugs are in high demand and, well, they were just liars and thieves and cheaters and pretty much piracy and bad people. So anyway, though, but they would give the women like ecstasy and all kinds of other stuff, and the women would just get that feeling that ecstasy gives people, and basically it's just a chemical reaction, and pretty much, and no one, and the women around them actually didn't really know that what they were doing to them, a lot of the times, which was the truth. Anyway, Marilyn Monroe might not have ever known that she was actually a drug user and actually under the influence of ecstasy or some sort of drug most of the time. So anyway, I don't really know the details of it, but pretty much that's what Nixon and John McCain and a lot of other people were doing around Washington and a lot of other stuff is they basically had access to cocaine and ecstasy and even the date rape drug, GHB or whatever, and LSD too and stuff like that. High good drugs, and basically they were importing them and pretty much using them. Basically my private supply of drugs that I had at the White House. I had a full supply of every drug you could possibly ever want at the White House. Anyway, they were using them until they used them all up, basically, or something like that. I don't really know the exact details of it, but pretty much, John McCain and anybody around John McCain and the others, they were under the influence of ecstasy and drugs. But they were restricting it from the knowledge of the people inside of America and other countries. So anyway, trying to make it like opium and all these other drugs didn't really exist, and they were basically just getting the drugs from overseas and from Germany, where they were manufactured in high amounts, and then basically restricting all drugs from ever coming into America or the United States or something like that. Anyway, though, eventually the women found out about it and were really pissed off and realized that they could get their drugs from other people as well, and a lot more drugs than than some people could give them. Anyway, though, so they seeked out their own little source of drugs or whatever. Anyway, eventually, it became something else. So anyway, whatever. I don't really care, but basically, that's what they were actually doing in the 40s and 50s, or 30s, 40s, and 50s. Is basically trying to make it like drugs didn't exist. Like I said, I sold whole bottles of things like lithium and other drugs. Like 7 Up was originally lithium. That's why it came in a green bottle, and it was a pure bottle of like 80 proof lithium oxide, lithium drug or whatever. Not lithium oxide, but lithium drug. I think it may be an oxide. I don't know. Anyway, lithium drug. Anyway, whatever. I sold it. It had one of the first labels, and the labels were really expensive to make at the time. It came out in like 1800 or something like that. Anyway, I don't care. I sold lots of drugs, but mostly were for sale inside of bars or drugstores, really, basically. And they were like $100 a bottle, but one bottle of lithium could light up a town, you might say. Like there was a lot of lithium in one bottle, and was well worth the price. And the bottle was more expensive than the actual drug because it was made of glass, and there was only so many of those. So because I was turning them out as fast as I could possibly make them, and they were green glass bottles, which were very expensive actually because there weren't that many around. But slowly there became more and more of them. And a lot of people, a lot of drug stores or bartenders would pour the lithium drug plus water it down and give it to people, because pretty much if you took the lithium bottle, 7 Up bottle, you would die. Like you could like even a shot, and shots were actually metered out to basically be the amount that you could drink in one day and not die, which would pretty much put you on the floor, basically within a couple minutes or hours or whatever. As soon as the drug hit your immune system, even like a quarter shot of lithium or whatever drug would put you on the floor, pretty much, of the pure stuff. But they would water it down and make it safe because it's very dangerous stuff. Ecstasy, lithium, cocaine in liquid form. And it tasted really good too because they mixed it with grape and all these other flavors to actually get the taste. Because we were trying to get the bad taste out of the drug, because you're basically drinking this drug that's really pure, and they taste really nasty if you just drink them straight. So we actually made them fruity tasting and basically, or grape tasting and some other flavors. Anyway, so people would not realize what they were actually taking. Sometimes. So and later on we put warning labels on it that it was actually a drug and very dangerous if swallowed a lot, if people drank a lot of it. So, and to suggest to make it, water it down. That's where you get the whole spoonful of drug, basically of cough syrup or whatever. And it wasn't really cough syrup; it was drugs. So anyway, so yeah, and we sold it basically a spoonful, because a spoonful is all you could really take of the really good stuff, and that would put you on the floor too. So anyway, though, and then later on I was like, oh, because there was some overdoses and some other stuff, because you could drink like way more than, basically if you drank like a good couple swigs of a pure bottle, like, which is $150 or $200 a bottle, they would have to fill your stomach with coal, with charcoal, because to absorb up all that extra stuff, because otherwise you would die, or go into shock. So anyway, but yeah, it was being sold in mass quantities overseas in Germany, and pretty much it was just in the Yankee United States that it was really rare and very hard to get. So anyway, so yeah, anyway, and they were trying to keep that from the knowledge of everyone.